Good afternoon. Yeah. Hello there. Is that Mr. Leonard? We are extremely pleased to be gathered here this afternoon to celebrate a truly special person as she retires from Cape Fear Academy and a long, wonderful career in education, Mrs. Libby White. And to start us off, I'm going to invite up to the podium the president of our Lower School Student Government Association, Annie Kane, assisted by Thomas Reed, the incoming president. So Annie and Thomas, please join us.
Stand. Please, sorry. Salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Libby White has excelled as a leader in the classroom and as an administrator at Cape Fear Academy since 1989. Many of you may not know that she taught second grade for her first few years here before becoming the lower school director in 1991. She also served in 2000 and 2001 as an interim middle school director. Now, Dr. Clauston Jenkins was the director of development during that year, and the following year, Dr. Jenkins was our interim head of school. And we welcome him back to CFA today to help us salute Mrs. White. Would Dr. Jenkins please come to the podium? Thank you.
Good afternoon. I am delighted to be here to be able to tell you why I think Libby White was, in my experience, the best lower school head I ever worked with. And she taught me three things in the course of my short time here that lasted with me. The first thing she taught me was humility. And she taught me that. I was sitting over in my office, the headmaster, and I get this call. We've got this problem with the first grade boys. And we need a man to come over here and show them something. And I said, oh, well, yes, of course, I'll do that. And then I began thinking about this. Woo-hoo! What are you going to do? And what are the kids going home and tell their parents? Today, that school head came and did, and they say, did what? So I learned very quickly that I needed to develop a skill and grace of dealing with those children that Libby could teach me how. And she provided such a great example that I really did learn to be humble in the sense of learning that the best thing you can do is do what comes naturally and love those children, and that's what Libby did her whole time, and that's why she was so effective. The second thing she taught me was to take care of your teachers. She knows, as we all know in this business, that the key to a successful school or class is the teacher. And the teacher needs to be supported. and the teacher needs to be nurtured. And sometimes the teacher needs to be helped to do a better job. And Libby was absolutely superb at that. And I noticed from meeting after meeting with her how she was always so supportive of her faculty. And her faculty knew, and this is what makes her a good head, that she was going to leave them alone. She was not going to stand over them and tell them what to do. That she was going to leave them alone to use their talent to do the best job they could, and that's why they were good in the classroom, and that's why she was so effective. And she supported the faculty like a mother eagle over the nest. She was superb. And the final thing that Libby did for me was she helped me learn how to deal with the pressures of the school life that sometimes get tough. One year at Christmas, she gave me a couple of martini glasses that had been painted by her daughter. Now, these glasses, I think, probably hold half a gallon each. They're the biggest glasses you have ever seen. But I can tell you that after one of those Libby martinis, the problems of the world disappear. And so, Libby, I'll send you off with this. When you've finished all getting everything done here, you go home and you find one of those glasses and pour about a fourth for you. And you drink it and you sip it and you use the immortal words of the great Martin Luther King in another context, and you say, "Free at last, free at last. Great God Almighty, I'm free at last."
Thank you very much, Dr. Jenkins. John Meal was headmaster of Cape Fear Academy from 2002 to 2012. John led CFA during a time of tremendous enrollment and facilities growth. In fact, it was through his and the board's efforts that we're sitting in such a beautiful facility today. Now, John is also the grandparent of 2 CFA students who have thrived in our lower school under Libby's direction. And we're pleased to have him back to campus on this particular occasion to recognize Libby White. John?
Clauston, that was a very hard act to follow. I understand that you finished second to Jimmy Fallon to take over for Jay Leno. Is that true? I am very honored to be a part of this celebration for a great professional and a fine human being, Libby White. And because it's an emotional time for me, I'm going to probably mostly read this, so I apologize for that in advance. I'm going to call the topic of this, I'm going to use an acronym, and the acronym is White Knows. And you spell that W-H-T-E, there's no I, K-N-O-W-S. W stands for wisdom. This is not necessarily the college degree or academic research kind of wisdom, although she has those. I'm referring to the wisdom of old school common sense and the parenting know-how about how children are that is somewhat diminishing in our country today. We need more of the Libby White style of common sense today than ever before. H, high energy. Libby is always upbeat and positive, and trust me, can outwork any of her younger colleagues. I, even though we skipped it in spelling that, can anybody guess why? There should be no I in White. Why should there be no I in Libby's last name? Because Libby has never been self-promoting, nor has she a personal agenda. It was always about the kids, not about Libby. As a headmaster, I can tell you that this is a huge characteristic to have with a key team member. T, tireless. Libby is the first to arrive and often the last to leave school. When I used to come over on Sunday afternoons occasionally to catch up with the week's backlog, often Libby will have beaten me there to the office, even though Sundays meant a lot to her, both religiously and family-wise. And finally, E, empathy. Libby is never too busy to listen to a teacher or a parent who is struggling in any way. Open door policy is much more than a cliche to Libby White. K, knows every child, parent, and their needs. Libby's encyclopedic knowledge of every student's and parent's name and grade are legend. If one of the chief selling points of a top independent school like CFA is that your child is known, then Libby is at the top of the example chain for this trait in the whole school. N, nurturing. Libby White is a helper, and her openness to find helping solutions is one of her very top characteristics. O, outstanding and caring team player with colleagues. The first question that Libby asked when a decision was reached in an administrative meeting is, how can I help? As a prime example, here's all you need to know. 3 times in the last 15 years, Libby graciously volunteered to be the chair of the SAIS SACS accrediting effort for Cape Fear Academy. Who would do that? Her response to taking on this huge job 3 times was, I would be happy to do it. W, warm. Enough said. It is easy for anyone to trust and make friends with a lady like Libby. And finally, S. S is going to stand for sports, Libby. We have to have at least one humorous letter, right? And I couldn't let Clausen upstage me entirely here. Sports. Libby? Say what? All right, let me explain. Libby has never claimed to have a very deep background in sports, although she was a cheerleader in high school. And in addition, in a piece of trivia that few know, Libby twirled fiery batons as part of her cheerleading career. You wouldn't have suspected that about Libby, would you? And anyway, during my 10 years as Libby's headmaster, Libby was forced every now and again to hear me use an occasional sports analogy. At first, Libby was quite puzzled when she heard one, but towards the end of our time together, she had begun to say, I get that, John. I am so proud of myself. Well, I'm proud of you too, Libby. And so is everyone else in this room. You have had a long career in education and a quarter century at Cape Fear Academy. Scores of students, parents, staff, and colleagues are in your debt. Know that you have made a difference in hundreds of lives, including mine. We salute you, Libby White, and thank you for all that you have meant to us.
Thank you very much, John. We now have a possibility of a new lower school club next year, baton twirling. So, dignity, grace, kindness, compassion. Soon after beginning at CFA this year, I discovered these were the personal qualities that Libby White exhibited daily in her work with students, staff, and parents. And then a short while later, while coming to work on a Saturday morning, I signed the log sheet that alerts others who may be working in Godwin that I'm also there. And I noticed Libby White's name listed right above mine in the log, indicating that she was also in working that Saturday morning. And before I replaced the log, I noticed that there were 15 names above Libby's. And I looked more carefully at those names, and I noticed all but one was Libby White. It turns out that Libby had been in every weekend since the beginning of the year to do her Cape Fear Academy work. And so I added diligence and commitment to my list of Libby White's personal qualities. And in fact, it's extraordinary diligence and commitment. It's all of these wonderful qualities, plus her love of learning, that we honor today by announcing the establishment of the Elizabeth H. White Professional Development Fund. Through the generous donations of alumni, parents, and trustees, we have developed a fund that will every summer enable lower school faculty members to pursue a professional development opportunity that will result in stronger teaching that will ultimately benefit our students. By using only the interest on the principal of this fund, the Elizabeth H. White Professional Development Fund, beginning in June 2014, will help Cape Fear Academy lower school faculty become better teachers every summer. I had the opportunity today at lunch to attend the Cape Fear Community College annual luncheon and hear Hall of Fame NASCAR driver Junior Johnson talk a bit about his career and a bit about philanthropy. And it's interesting, you may be wondering, well, what could possibly be the connection between Junior Johnson, who's a NASCAR driver, former bootlegger, and Libby White? Now, Clauston actually established that connection, but that's not what I had in mind. But at the end of Mr. Johnson's talk, and by the way, Junior Johnson has given well over $1 million to Forsyth Country Day School and is a highly regarded philanthropist in the Winston-Salem and North Carolina area. But at the end of the talk, he exclaimed that while he made a fortune in his lifetime, he'd also given away a fortune. Well, Libby, while we can't say that you've actually made a fortune here at Cape Fear Academy, we can say that you have given away a fortune of love, a fortune of caring, and learning to generations of students. You have left a legacy of excellence at Cape Fear Academy that is indeed a fortune, and we thank you so much for all you've done. At this time, I'd like to ask Susan Harrell, a longtime employee, Director of Admissions, and currently Director of Advancement at Cape Fear Academy, to come forward.
We're going to talk about that. It is a true honor and a little bit daunting to have the opportunity today to help celebrate Libby White and her contributions to the families of Cape Fear Academy for the last 24 years. It's difficult to express adequately the magnitude of the effect that she's had on me as a person or CFA as a community. She may look like a lightweight, but she's got superpowers that could quite possibly defy the laws of nature. Her strength of character and her fierce commitment to our children are forces that we admire and that will always be part of her legacy. My longtime friendship with Libby White began after my first year at Cape Fear Academy, when I was in the dual role of lower school director and admissions director. We were a lot smaller then. And just after our second grade teacher resigned, I got a phone call from Mrs. White saying she was moving to the area and she was interested in a teaching position. My ears perked up when I heard her summarize her teaching experience. Chapel Hill Public Schools, Charleston Public Schools, Durham Academy. So once we met, it was pretty clear that her pedigree and her passion for teaching were perfect for our job. So after she taught our second grade these first 2 years, our school grew to the point where the admissions director job became full-time for me, and Ms. White's understanding of and experience in independent schools were key to her being appointed in 1991 to be the lower school director. And then her son John joined us as a student in 1991 and graduated in 94, and then 3 of her grandchildren who are sitting here with us today have either attended or are attending Jackson Schutte, J.T. White, and Leighton White. So Libby has a legacy here not only from the teacher and administrator, but as a grandmom and mom as well. So as the years went by and the school continued to grow, Libby and I ended up living in the same office suite for 12 years. We've always been late to leave our desks. The only difference is that she gets here at 6:30 in the morning. We spent many 5 and 6 and 7 o'clocks in the evening in our adjacent offices, conversing and consoling and counseling, and just maybe eating a few pieces of Hershey's chocolate miniature kisses and some other healthy things. And I promise this is the only tale I'm going to tell on you. So you might not know this, but she was actually known to hide her candy wrappers in Kelly Borton's trash can. Because she and I love Mr. Carlton, who's our little janitorial staff guy that comes around and always talks to us in the afternoon. And she didn't want Mr. Carlton to know how much candy she'd eaten, that she'd be busted for being unhealthy. So, yeah. See, that's the worst thing I can tell on you, okay? I got some insight from some of the students, and be reminded that you get the clearest picture of character from children. You don't fool children. Some of the third graders zeroed in on her great qualities. She's an excellent role model, they said. I didn't know they would know what a role model was. She's generous with her love. She's our hero. She opens the doors and smiles at us and says hello every day. She loves us. She knows our names. First grader Grant Peebles said, she keeps us healthy and safe. And Everly Miller, 4 years old, in Little Explorers said, I love her and I want to make her some hearts, and proceeded to draw beautiful, colorful hearts for Miss White. As Ralph Waldo Emerson portrayed, one of the defining elements in the achievement of success is to win the respect of intelligent people and the affection of children. Yes, clearly, Libby has done this. As a leader, Libby exemplified servant leadership long before it became the buzzword in corporate management jargon. It's been said that the goal of many leaders is to get people to think more highly of the leader, but the goal of a great leader is to help people think more highly of themselves. Or as Sam Walton once said, outstanding leaders go out of their way to boost the self-esteem of their personnel. If people believe in themselves, it's amazing what they can accomplish. Libby White has a long tenure of evidence of mastery of this. As the embodiment of a servant leader, her humble manner and desire to give credit to others has been a defining quality in her career. And yet, not being one to shy away from the difficult work that great leaders must do, she has realized, as she says it, the key to failure is to try to please everyone. This is actually taped on her desk. I went in last week to make sure it was still there. That's what I was doing in your office that day. It's actually taped to her desk with one other quote that absolutely epitomizes Libby White, the unflappable, always together Libby White. The secret of success is to be like a duck, smooth and unruffled on the top and paddling furiously underneath. Amen, sister. The legacy of my friend and colleague will be enduring. She has touched all of us with her positive spirit, and we are all the beneficiaries of her dedicated service to CFA. I want to share something that seems perfect to describe Libby's effect on our school. It doesn't matter what you do. I can do this. It doesn't matter what you do, as so long as you change something from the way it was before you touched it into something that's like you after you take your hands away. The difference between the man who just cuts lawns and a real gardener is in the touching. The lawn cutter might just as well have not been there at all. The gardener will be there for a lifetime. I'd like to invite Libby and all the members of her family to stand over here as we prepare to conclude this ceremony. Her husband Lindley is here, her sons Lindley and John, her daughters Ann Schutte and Beth Conlon, and their spouses and children. And for those of you who didn't come early, Beth came from Chicago. Beth's her only child who doesn't live in Wilmington. Beth came from Chicago and was sitting in the chair when Libby walked in just now. So Libby's probably blood pressure high and breathing deeply here. In closing, there's one more quote from one of our students that I thought was particularly appropriate. Kindergartner Lilia Wall said that when Miss White retires, she should think about us playing on the playground. Out of the mouths of babes, because I have the joyous honor of announcing that we will conclude this ceremony by having Libby White and her family lead us as we walk over for the unveiling of the plaque on the Elizabeth H. White Playground.
I don't have anything prepared because I honestly thought today was going to be in the courtyard with the sun shining, punch and cookies. So from the bottom of my heart, I thank you all. And for those who talked, I thank you more than you know. This is, as I've told so many of you when you say something to me about congratulations, it's bittersweet, and I will miss you all. But I love this place, and I will keep in touch. So thank you so much for everything. And I'm looking forward to the punch and cookies. So.
Okay, Libby's children are going to help us unveil the plaque that's going to be on this wall right here. We couldn't figure out how to put it up without her finding out. Go ahead. Is dedicated to Elizabeth H. White, lower school director and teacher from 1989 to 2013, who has won the respect of a generation of lower school students and parents, guiding their paths, developing their potential, and delighting in their triumphs.